You're in your late 30s or early 40s. You've got a 401k, you're contributing. Maybe you've even run the numbers a few times on one of those retirement calculators. And somewhere along the way, someone told you the rule. Save up 25 times your annual expenses, withdraw 4% a year, done. You're financially free. Clean, simple, reassuring. Here's the problem. That rule was built for a world that no longer exists. And if the market crashes in the first 5 years after you retire, that rule won't just underperform, it will wipe you out. I know that's a strong statement. Stick with me, because if you're between 35 and 44 right now, what I'm about to share is the most important retirement math you'll ever hear, and you've got just enough time to actually fix it. Let's talk about where you actually are right now. If you're 38 years old today, retirement is probably 20 to 25 years away. That's both the good news and the trap. The good news, you have time, real time, the kind of time that makes compounding look like a superpower. The trap, because retirement feels far away, most guys your age are operating on autopilot. Set it and forget it. Max the 401k, pick an index fund, follow the 4% rule when the time comes, and assume the math will work out. And look, that's not stupid. That's actually better than what most people do. Most Americans have almost nothing saved at your age, but better than most and actually prepared for what markets can do to you are two very different things. Here's the scenario that should genuinely concern you. Imagine you hit your number, let's say $1.5 million, a realistic target for someone your age who's been disciplined. You retire at 55, 58, maybe 62. You start withdrawing 4%. That's $60,000 a year. Life is good. Then in year 2 of your retirement, a recession hits. Not a blip, a real one. Your portfolio drops 35 to 40%. Now you're sitting on $900,000, but you're still pulling $60,000 a year. That's not 4% anymore. That's nearly 7%. And the market needs to do something extraordinary just to get you back to even, while you're draining it every single month. That's not a hypothetical. That's exactly what happened to people who retired in 2000 and in 2007. And it'll happen again. We just don't know when. The 4% rule, what it is and what it never promised you. Let's be precise about this rule, because most people get it slightly wrong, and that slight wrongness is expensive. In 1994, a financial planner named William Bengen published a study. He looked at historical stock and bond market data going back to 1926. He ran every possible 30-year retirement window, every starting year, and asked, what's the highest withdrawal rate that never caused a portfolio to fail before 30 years were up? The answer was 4%. And that's with a portfolio that's roughly 50% stocks and 50% bonds. That's where the rule comes from. And for what it was, a planning benchmark based on historical data, it was genuinely solid work. But here's what the rule was never designed for. It was not designed for someone retiring at 50, 52, or 55. His study covered 30-year windows. If you retire at 52 and live to 90, you need a 38-year withdrawal strategy. The failure rates in longer windows are significantly higher. It was not designed for today's interest rate environment. The bond returns baked into that study are not the bond returns available today. The cushion that bonds traditionally provided has shrunk, and most critically, it was not designed to survive a severe market crash in the first 5 years of retirement. That last point, that's the one that matters most for your planning right now. Sequence of returns. The concept that will change how you think about money. Okay, this is the core concept of this entire video. Read this slowly if you need to. Sequence of returns risk is the idea that the order in which you experience market returns matters just as much as the average return, and it matters most when you're withdrawing money. Let me give you 2 guys, same age, same starting portfolio, same average annual return over 20 years. Guy A, call him Marcus, retires and immediately hits a bull market. Strong returns in years 1 through 8. Then a crash hits in year 12. Guy B, call him Derek, retires and immediately gets hit with the crash. Years 1 through 4 are brutal. Then the recovery comes in years 6 through 20. Same average return, same starting amount, same withdrawal rate. Marcus is fine. Derek runs out of money. Why? Because Derek was forced to sell depressed assets during the crash just to fund his living expenses. He locked in losses at the worst possible time, and he didn't have enough shares left to benefit fully when the recovery came. Marcus never had to sell during a downturn. He drew from gains. His base stayed intact. This is sequence of returns risk. And here's the brutal reality. You cannot control which sequence you get. You cannot time the market. You cannot choose to retire in 2009 at the bottom of a crash instead of 2008 at the top. What you can control is how your strategy responds to whichever sequence you get. That's the entire game. And this is exactly where the 4% rule, used blindly, rigidly, lets you down. It assumes an average sequence, but half of all retirees experience worse than average. And the ones who hit a crash in year 1 or 2, the fixed 4% rule can be a death sentence for their portfolio.
The real safe withdrawal rates for your situation.
Let's talk real numbers, not textbook numbers. Wade Pfau, a professor and one of the most respected retirement researchers alive today, has argued for years that in the current market environment, 3% to 3.3% is a more realistic safe withdrawal rate for retirees who want high confidence their money lasts 35 to 40 years. If you're planning to retire at 55, that's a 35 to 40-year horizon. The 4% rule wasn't tested for that. 3% to 3.3% is the number you should be planning around. What does that mean practically? If you plan to spend $80,000 a year in retirement, at 4% withdrawal, you need $2 million. At 3% withdrawal, you need $2.67 million. That's a $670,000 gap. That's not a rounding error. That's years of your financial life. Is this depressing? A little. But here's the flip side. You're 35 to 44. You have time to close that gap. A guy who learns this at 58 doesn't. And there are strategies that let you use a higher withdrawal rate safely, but they require active management, not a set-it-and-forget-it approach. All right, enough problem. Here's the solution stack. Tool number 1, the bucket strategy. Stop thinking of retirement as one big pile of money. This is the single most powerful mental and structural shift you can make. Instead of one big investment account you draw from every month, you divide your retirement savings into 3 buckets. Bucket 1, cash. 1 to 2 years of living expenses in a high-yield savings account or money market. This is what you live on right now. 0 stock market exposure. This bucket doesn't care what the S&P 500 does. Bucket 2, conservative growth. 3 to 10 years of projected needs. Short to medium-term bonds. Dividend stocks. REITs. Lower volatility. This bucket slowly refills bucket 1 as you spend it down. Bucket 3, aggressive growth. Everything else. Index funds. Equities, your highest growth assets. You don't touch this for at least 10 years. Here's why this works. When the market crashes, you are not selling anything from bucket 3. You're living off bucket 1. The market can drop 40% and you don't care because you've got 2 years of expenses in cash and another 7 years of moderate assets in bucket 2. By the time you need bucket 3, it's had a decade to recover. You've completely neutralized sequence of returns risk. Tool number 2, dynamic withdrawal. Stop being rigid. The 4% rule is rigid. Real life is not. In years where your portfolio performs well, withdraw 4% or even 4.5%. In years where the market tanks, cut back. Take 3%. Delay the vacation. Cut discretionary spending for 12 months. This sounds like a sacrifice, but research by financial planner Jonathan Guyton showed that adding this simple flexibility, even small adjustments, dramatically extends portfolio longevity. We're talking potentially 10 to 15 additional years of portfolio survival. The key is building this flexibility into your lifestyle before you retire. Don't design a retirement that requires $10,000 a month to function. Design one where $8,000 works fine if the market has a bad year.
Tool number 3, income flooring. Build the base layer.
Here's the strategy that separates sophisticated planners from everyone else. Build a floor of guaranteed income that covers your non-negotiable expenses. Mortgage, food, utilities, healthcare, the stuff that happens whether markets cooperate or not. For most American men your age, this starts with Social Security optimization. And I mean seriously optimizing it, not just taking it as soon as you can. Every year you delay Social Security past 62, your benefit increases. Between 62 and 70, it grows approximately 6 to 8% per year, guaranteed for life, inflation adjusted. That is an unbeatable return. If you're in reasonable health, delaying to 70 can add $500 to $1,000 plus per month to your guaranteed income for the rest of your life. If your guaranteed income covers your baseline expenses, your portfolio only needs to fund the fun stuff: travel, hobbies, Discretionary spending. Suddenly, you don't need a 4% withdrawal. You might only need 2% from your portfolio. The sequence of returns problem shrinks dramatically. Tool number 4, the 2-year buffer, the simplest insurance policy you've never heard. This is one of the easiest, most underrated strategies out there. As you approach retirement, starting about 5 years out, begin building a cash buffer equivalent to 2 full years of living expenses. Not invested, just liquid. High-yield savings, T-bills, whatever keeps it safe and accessible. If the market crashes in year 1 of your retirement, you live off this buffer for 2 years while you wait for recovery. You sell 0 shares. You lock 0 losses. Markets have historically recovered from bear markets within 2 to 3 years. Your 2-year buffer buys you that time without touching your portfolio. Cost of this strategy? You keep 2 years of expenses in lower returning cash. Benefit? You completely insulate yourself from the most dangerous period of retirement, the first few years. The stuff that's specific to your age and situation. Here's what I want to say directly to the guy watching this who's 37, 39, 42. You are in the most powerful financial decade of your life right now. Your income is likely the highest it's ever been or approaching it. Your investing horizon is long enough that aggressive compounding is still very much on your side. And you have just enough time to course correct if your current plan has gaps. But this decade is also when complacency kills retirement plans. The guys who coast through their late 30s and early 40s on autopilot, assuming the default strategy will work out, are the same guys who wake up at 58 and realize their number isn't there, and their options have dramatically narrowed. The questions to ask yourself right now. 1. Is my current retirement projection based on 4% or something more conservative? If it's 4%, recalculate at 3% and see what your real number needs to be. 2. Do I have any income flooring strategy? Do I know what my Social Security benefit looks like if I delay to 70? Have I modeled both scenarios? 3. Do I have a plan for sequence of returns risk, or am I implicitly assuming I'll retire in a good market? Nobody retires in a planned good market. Markets don't cooperate with your timeline. 4. Is my retirement spending plan flexible or fixed? Can you genuinely cut your spending by 20% for a year or two if markets tank? If not, you need to redesign the plan before you need to execute it. Here's the bottom line. The 4% rule gave a generation of Americans a framework to think about retirement. That's genuinely valuable. Bengen's work was important, but the rule is a starting point, and a starting point built on assumptions that may not apply to your timeline, your allocation, or the market environment you'll actually retire into. For men in their late 30s and early 40s, your age group, the most dangerous retirement mistake isn't being too aggressive or too conservative with your investments. It's rigidity. It's having a plan that only works if nothing goes wrong, because something will go wrong. Markets will crash. They always do. The only question is whether your plan is built to survive it, or whether you're one bad sequence of returns away from a retirement that looks very different from what you planned. You've got the time to build it right. Most people don't get to say that. Use it.